Hi, everybody. Hello. It's your girl, Johana, better known as Joe. Welcome to our second episode of A Cup of Joe with Joe. Thank you so much for joining in and tuning in live. Those of you who are live, thank you so much for your recent outpouring of support, messages, feedbacks that I've been getting for our first Cup of Joe 2 weeks ago. The support message, text message has been overwhelming. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for allowing me to come into your home, to come into your, live with my little, wanting to share my heart with you guys. So again, thank you so much. Today is our second episode. I was very excited about today. I've been working on it for a couple of days, putting it together for you. And so before I go into the title, what I want to talk about is how 2 weeks ago, for those of you who didn't catch last episode, 2 weeks ago, what I wanted to do was to establish a foundation. And that foundation was established on what our mission here is. And if you recall, our mission is to teach women to know who they are and whose they are. So we established that as our foundation. And for the rest of this season, we will be building on that foundation, because that's how you build a good home, right? You dig deep, you build the foundation, and then you build it up brick by brick. So that's what we're going to be doing in these next couple of episodes, as we're putting the bricks with what makes, an empowered woman, or what my goal here at Cup of Joe with Joe is. So our topic today is empowered versus independent. The myth of the independent woman. Empowered versus independent, the myth of the independent woman. However, y'all, before we go into our discussion today, I want to pause for a little while to talk a bit about current events. If you recall on my promo video, I did say we're going to talk about various topics that's close to my heart, current events and things that's happening. So I want to pause to talk about a current event that just recently took place. And what I'm talking about was yesterday's verdict on the murder trial of George Floyd, the guilty verdict that was handed down. Originally, of course, this was not part of my discussion, as I've been planning this for days. This just happened yesterday afternoon. But as a woman, as a Black woman, I would be remiss if I did not say something on this verdict. And what, especially I want to use my platform authentically and genuinely to bring voice and light on issues that are close to my heart. So again, I would be remiss if I didn't pause to make a statement. What I want to say, though, today it will not be about racial issues or injustice, but we will be discussing that in due time on other episodes at A Cup of Joe. What I want to focus on with the verdict that was handed down yesterday was, I wanted to acknowledge that on some level, justice was done yesterday for George Floyd. His, humanity was recognized as a human being, and justice was served for that purpose. Now, hope he can rest peacefully. I know, it would be better if he was here with his family, with his daughter, but I do pray for his family can find a sense of comfort in this verdict. I know it doesn't bring him back, but it does push the agenda of humanity, justice for Black women and Black men forward. It pushes it, forward, and we as a country can come closer to recognizing and value the life of Black women and Black men. Those 12 jurors, did the right thing. They recognized that an injustice was done and a man was murdered, and his murderer was convicted, and now he will get to spend possibly the rest of his life in jail. And so what I want to say to that for you, and what I want you to do for me, is more on the mental and emotional side of what we just went through. I know the effect it has had on us as women, particularly on us as Black women. We went from trauma for when it happened, right? Grief at the loss of a human life, to anxiety anxiousness during the trial, right? Biting our nails, waiting, and now to a sense of relief, right? And so it is a bittersweet relief. Those things always are, because, we would rather have the person here with us. But what I want to do is encourage you, particularly women. I want to encourage you to, don't downplay your feelings. Don't downplay your emotion. Don't try to stuff them down and be strong and not let yourself go through those emotions and feelings. It's okay to feel, multiple emotions run through your body: sadness, anxiety, relief, a little bit of hope, and then that hope taken back, again. It's okay, acknowledge it for what it is, process it, pray about it, release it, and then breathe. We can't control things. There's a lot of things we cannot control. So us trying to mask our feelings and emotion by adding those layers of, on us, what that does is it moves it from anxiety to sadness and then to depression, because we're trying to hold it in, so we need to walk through that cycle, acknowledge what it is, understand it. Okay, understand it, acknowledge this reckoning that was done for this man's murder, and then breathe, breathe, let it out, give it to God, and let's continue to push forward in our community with the agenda to say that we matter, our lives matter, and and we need, our humanity need to be respected, and we need to be valued just like any other creature that God created. So that's really what I wanted to talk about with regards to yesterday's event. Now, like I said, other issues related to, injustice, social, racial issue will be discussed at a later time on A Cup of Joe with Joe. But today I wanted to at least acknowledge that and let you guys know I'm going through it, and it's okay to be going through this roller coaster of emotion that you guys are going through. But I do want to get into our topic because, one, I think it offers a little bit of distraction, and two, I wouldn't be authentically me if I didn't stick with my plan and kind of give a sense of normalcy with everything that's going on. So, as I said before, our topic is empowered versus independent, the myth of the independent woman. The saying goes, if you don't know where you're going, you don't know where you've come from. You need to know where you've come from to know where you're going. You got to look back to look forward, right? That's the saying. So when I was doing a little research and digging in a little historical context for this study, of course, I had to go do some research to understand, where did this, independent woman thing come from? I kind of, because I want to do a comparison between empowered and independent. So I had to do a little research, historically speaking, for where did that mindset come from? Well, of course, I had to take us to biblical time, right? So we know in Bible time, particularly in the Old Testament, it was very much a patriarchal mindset. It was very much a patriarchal society back in the Bible time, particularly in the Old Testament, right? In the Old Testament, women were not in the forefront in the Bible. It was mostly a male-dominated era, to the point where this was even proven further. This fact was even proven because if you may not know that in the Bible, for example, in the Bible, about 8%, women make up 8% of all named characters in the Bible. So what I'm trying to say is, of all the 66 books in the Bible, and of all the characters mentioned throughout the book, women make up only 8% of all named characters, right? So at one point, the Bible shows us that, women were, second-class citizen. They were considered really at one point as properties, like just like any livestock or lands or anything like that. So think back to, if you read your Bible or any historical context regarding biblical time, women, a man had to basically pay for, either with funds or livestock, to pay in order to have a woman as his wife, right? That was the context. However, as I'm doing my research, the Bible has Old Testament and New Testament. I was like, well, how does it feel? Where does a woman stand in the New Testament? And what I find, very funny is that this part that I'm about to talk is often overlooked in the context of women in biblical time. If you look at it, I think it's actually downplayed, particularly now. It's downplayed and not talked about a lot. That is Jesus's view on women. Where did he stand on women? What was his stance as far as women's concerned? Because if you read the New Testament, in Jesus's inner circle, right, his ministry, women held important positions in Jesus's ministry, right? To some level, some women had leadership role in Jesus's ministry. We talked about it 2 weeks ago. He revealed himself after resurrection to a woman, Mary Magdalene, right? So it made me realize that, wait, women, the trajectory of what a woman and where women sit in society, Jesus took a different approach, a different tone to it. So I looked further. What else does the New Testament say? Well, the book of Luke even mentioned that women contributed financially to Jesus's ministry, right? So that means for a woman to contribute financially to Jesus's ministry, that means there was a level of financial success that caused them to contribute to his ministry financially, right? Which means that they were managing their money, not only for their household, but they were responsible enough to now give to his ministry and support his ministry. Let's take it even a step further. Let's go into where Paul, one of the greatest apostles, where does he stand on that? Okay, Johana. Well, look up Galatians 3:28, where he states, there is neither Jew nor Greek, neither slave nor free, neither male or female, for all are one in Jesus Christ. So if you examine the scripture correctly, we see here that Paul is trying to not make a distinction between Jews and Greek, which to me indicates race or ethnicity, right? Slave or free, indicating equality. Male, female, indicating gender. He is saying those roles, as far as those roles are concerned, they're all equal and valued in Christ. There are no distinction, right? We should all be treated equally if you fall in those categories. But somehow, in biblical time and past that, that little tidbit is overlooked, right? So I said, okay, that's biblical time. What does modern history say about the independent woman? All you got to do is go back a few years, realizing that modern history still carried a patriarchal mindset society, right? It was pushed. Women were still considered second-class citizens, right? The only group really outside of women that was considered a little lower than women were Black folks, right? We were still second-class citizen. Women and Black folks, a little lower than that, were considered second-class citizen. I mean, what I'm saying is not far-fetched. All you got to do is, if you have grandparents that are still alive, who were born in the 1920s, 1930s, 1950s, the patriarchal system that they lived through deemed that their place was in the home. Like they couldn't even, back then, one of the quotes I read, one of the things I found out, women couldn't even get a loan, a home loan or credit card. If they were married, they had to get their husband's approval. If they were unmarried, their fathers had to step in. That's how much they were considered second-class citizens. That's the time we were living in, right? That's the idea. That is what fostered the idea. That time in the 20s, 30s, 50s, that fostered that whole homemaker idea, right? A woman's place was in the home, supporting the husband, raising the kids, maintaining the home, right? Her choices outside of the home were greatly limited, and what's sad is that it was even more taxing for Black women, right? So women were pigeonholed by the patriarchal society. Black women then had to add an additional post-slavery, right, and Jim Crow era to that marginalization already happening in their lives. So now that, I've kind of looked back at all of those things, my husband, I love him. He does help with this. My husband, describes honey, this is the why. This is the necessity that birthed the whole, independent woman. And this is the quote he said, and I quote, he said, in order for women to seek to be an independent woman, it means there must have been an oppressor oppressing them to want independence from. Let me repeat. In order for women to seek to be an independent woman, It means there must have been an oppressor oppressing them to want independence from. So, in order for women to seek to be independent, they had to been oppressed or marginalized, right? Whether that oppressed was in the home, the household they were growing up in, physically, mentally, in different institutions, like the whole loan situation, whatever it was, pay disparity, whatever it was, they needed their independence in order to birth the whole independent woman platform. Right? They had to break free from the patriarchal system that was keeping them down, that was holding them down, right? That was marginalizing them. So that's where the platform was birth of independent women, right? So we're glad, thankfully, that our society, our culture was evolving. Thank God the global economy was becoming industrialized, where women, black or white, were starting to establish their voice, were starting to establish themselves as a force for change, outside the home. And so in finding that voice, they were saying, I'm here, I'm not going anywhere. Particularly, y'all, continuing with the historical context, particularly after World War II and during and after Vietnam War. What was happening is now the men, the patriarchs, needed to go and fight in the front line in the war, right? They needed to go fight in the war. So what happened, women now needed to go where? In the assembly line to take a job. Right? Somebody had to bring the bacon. So the women stayed behind working, not only working to keep the family financially stable, but working to make bombs and other supplies for the men fighting the war. So once women started working, they're bringing in the bacon, and that societal change started happening. Women really became empowered because they were getting jobs, which then they were getting educated, undergrad, grad, even doctoral degree. They were like, wait a minute, I'm finding my voice and I'm demanding equal treatment. You know what I mean? I want to talk about issues that are affecting me and other women. Issues such as voting rights, civil rights, reproductive rights, pay inequality. Women were starting to find their voice because they were now out there outside of the home. Those issues became the foundation of the platform of the independent woman. And they started becoming a force for change, a force for positive change that was starting to take place for all women. I sit back and think, biblical women in the Bible, such as Queen Esther, my fave, Judge Deborah, Naomi, Hagar, they're probably up there going, yes, girls, like you guys have taken it a little further than where we were, right? So we've come a long way. Now, we still have a long way to go in women's rights, but we've come a long way. The marginalization of women helped create that independent woman platform. Right? So now that I've done this whole, biblical and modern historical lesson, what's the point, Joe? Well, let's look at current times, right? Let's look at current time. As I am closely examining and I'm studying current, culture, and I'm looking at the phenomenon of our current culture, I started looking at some of the behaviors, attitudes, and rhetorics that is starting to define that independent woman. Some of those definitions, I'm going to go through them with you right now. For example, the Urban Dictionary's definition of an independent woman is a woman who pays her own bills, buys her own things, does not allow man to affect her stability or self-confidence. She supports herself entirely on her own and is proud and able to do so. Another definition says independent woman is a woman comfortable doing things on her own. You are able to sleep on your own, eat, live alone. You don't need people to coddle you. You can teach yourself, you can protect yourself, right? Another description states it this way. An independent woman is a woman who works her butt off. She can come home and clean the house, make dinners, make money, follow her passions, don't care what nobody says about her. She's busy chasing her dreams and living her best life. Now, y'all, listen. After I read all of these explanations, I was like, well, maybe I'm not an independent woman as I thought I was. I was like, wait, I'm all for the independent woman platform. Don't get me wrong, okay? When I'm talking about current time, I'm talking about a span of the past 5 to 10 years, okay? These are when those definitions started changing. And so when I say current times, that's the time frame I'm talking about here. But for me, some of these descriptions, in my opinion, started taking liberties and maybe even becoming extreme in the definition of independent woman. And some of these extreme is, to me, when I read them and I'm reading about it, it's starting to indicate somehow being an independent woman, I'm independent of God, right? As a married woman, I'm independent of my spouse. As a single person, I'm independent as, from not having an accountability partner. Just because you're single and you're working and you're doing that, you still need an accountability partner. You still need friends and confidence that you can speak to. So I'm starting looking at those liberties and extreme that they're taking, and I'm like, wait, we have to be careful not to be pressured to fall into an extreme definition of what an independent woman is. And here's why. I'm almost out of time. Like I said, this was gonna be a 2-part. We're gonna continue this, but I want to give you guys this. What I'm worried about that we're going into the extreme is particularly the extreme for Black women, especially Black women, okay? Here's some of the issue with some of the extreme, because when we go to the extreme like that we can do bad all by ourselves, I don't need anybody, I can bring home the bacon, cook the food, blah, blah, blah. Here's the issue that happens, particularly labeling Black women. Because what that does is it feed into the notion that we don't feel pain, right? We don't feel hurt. That we can do it all, we can muster through, we can push through, we are inexhaustible somehow, right? Because we're so strong and we're so independent, and that, we could still be boss babes and do everything. And I feel like that extreme independent side of it is eroding our mental health and our physical health, because we're trying to be too much, everything for everybody all at once. And I'm sorry, y'all, that's a myth. Right? No one woman can be everything and everything to everybody. That is not good for our mental health. That is not good. So what I want to say, the reason why, I'm going to skip a little bit. The reason why I want to talk about this is, I know you guys are probably thinking, okay, Joe, do you not believe in the independent woman platform? What's going on here? We look up to you. You are an independent woman. Like, what's going on here? That is not what I'm saying at all. If anything, I know there exist systems and institution and men out there who are so misogynistic and patriarchal in their mindset that they want women to stay as second-class citizens. They want women to remain barefoot and pregnant, metaphorically. I know that. I've lived it. I've experienced it. What I'm trying to say is be careful on the extremes of it. And I'm gonna close with this. This is what I'm gonna close today with, and we're gonna continue, because now I have to contrast the empowered woman, where we need to come out of that side. But I wanna, as I'm examining the dichotomy between the empowered woman and the independent woman, I can't help but think of this quote. And I do that by looking at the lives of women I admire, women in my life, look at my life. I think of this quote, and this quote is from Dr. A.R. Bernard. He is the pastor of CCC, Christian Cultural Center in Brooklyn. And this is the quote I want to leave you guys with as you're thinking of independent women, the myth, and some of the extremes, right? The quote is this: anything taken to the extreme becomes error, even the good things. Catch this. Anything taken to the extreme becomes error, even the good things. This is where you get the word extremist from, right? It's an ideology, it's a platform that we've taken it to the extreme, and it becomes error. So my challenge to you guys, as we're going to continue this conversation, because that's what this is, a conversation, right? I don't want to rush through this. My challenge to you is, at what point does independence of a woman goes far enough that it loses its original meaning, right? I don't want us to be so independent woman focused that we think we're an island, that we think we can do it all by ourselves, because it actually takes a village. It takes a village, because we're so busy proving to the patriarchal society that I can be educated, I can work, I can bring home bacon, I can do this, I don't need nobody, I can do bad all by myself. We're so busy proving that we're forgetting that we weren't created to do life alone. God created us to be in relationship with Him in with each other. So we have to be mindful and be careful to not add that to our shoulders and our heart, specifically Black women, because it's putting our health at risk when we have now professionals who think, well, she can't feel pain. You know, she's good. We can dump more stuff on her because she can handle it. That is not good for our mental health. That is not good for our physical health. So I just want us, until next time, to think about some of that extreme and current time that the Independent Woman platform is going through, but start focusing on why you are empowered, okay? Why you are an empowered woman versus independent woman. So anyways, looks like I am running out of time. I don't want this to be long. I just wanted to give you something to jog your mind, think about it. We're gonna continue our conversation. Let me see. Woo, thank you. I'm running out of time. I don't want this to be long. I just wanted to... Oh my goodness, okay. So yeah, just again, wanna drop this in your heart, drop this in your mind. Think about the difference between independent and empowered. If you've seen my post, you see my favorite quotes is empowered woman, empower women. I need us to elevate our thinking and go beyond that. I have that big S on my chest. I can do it all. I don't need anybody, but move it to an empowered woman. Next time, maybe next week, but definitely 2 weeks from now, but I may come back next week to then talk about when you elevate your thinking from independent to empowered, how it impacts you, your family, your community, and now you can lift other women with you because now you don't feel like you have to do it alone. It takes a community. Anyways, guys, thank you guys so much. I love you all. Thank you for the feedback. I know this is a tough time that we're going through with everything that's happening in our country. I pray that you have a wonderful Wednesday. Keep God first. If everything that's happening is making you sad, here's the one thing that I know that helps me. I think of the things that God has blessed me with. Gratefulness. I stay in a gratitude and a grateful mind. And if you do that, I promise you, he's going to lift you out of whatever you're going through. Because after all, that's what he's there for. And he loves you. He cares for you. Once you know who you are and whose you are, there's nothing you can't face. So again, guys, I love you guys. Thank you so much. See you next time. Don't forget to email me at A Cup of Joe with Joe. Go on the YouTube page. You can rewatch this. And I'll see you guys next time. Love you guys so much. Bye, guys.